For those of you who follow my videos on a regular basis, you probably remember when the Surface Studio was first announced and I went down to the Microsoft store and I completely drooled over it and its amazing screen. And in that same video, I tested out the pen and I checked out just how it worked and the hinge and just got a really good feel for the product, as good of a feel as you can get just kind of sitting in a store for a half hour, drawing on it. And over the last few months, I've had every intention of going back and actually getting one of the units and reviewing it. And I've talked about that in another video, and at this point, it's back ordered until April, so I'm not sure when I'm actually gonna get to that review. But in the meantime, I've had a lot of thoughts on it. There are other people who've come out with reviews, people who are actually using it and testing it out on their own, and so my opinion has had time to evolve. And so I kind of wanted to share some of the thoughts on the Surface Studio and where I stand on it right now. But my opinion on it has kind of cooled. Here we are in mid-February and a lot of reviews have come out and I've had time to read those and digest those and see how other people are using it. And overall, I still love the screen. I still think it looks amazing. It's still fun to draw on, but I've taken this kind of wait and see attitude, this idea of maybe it's not the perfect device right now. Maybe we have to wait until next year. I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, so the idea of waiting until next year is kind of hardwired into me at this point. And I think part of the reason that I've cooled on it is because of the hardware itself, the actual internals of the computer that are running the whole thing. Usually when I'm reviewing something, I don't actually like to go out and read other people's reviews because I don't want it to influence necessarily like what I'm thinking when I'm using the product. But since it's been so long and I'm so excited about it, I have been compiling a lot of other people's reviews. And I've actually pushed those off on my website on the Surface Studio page. I'll link that down below in the comments. So in my other video, of course, I covered the good stuff, the screen, the hinge, the drawing. So this time I wanted to kind of dive a little bit deeper into the hardware and why I think this first iteration might not be worth diving into right now. In one of the reviews that I watched, the guy who was reviewing it said that the hardware of the Surface Studio barely runs the screen. Now I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration, and because I make videos, I understand that the way I write something is a lot clearer than sometimes how I say it. However, I kind of get the gist of what he's going at. When you have a high density display and that display has a ton of pixels, it's obviously going to take more processing power to display something on those pixels. So if you're doing something that is graphically intensive, it just makes sense that you're going to need more powerful hardware to run that. Also, when you look at other devices, usually when they sell them, the lowest end version is not the version I want. I usually want a step or two up. That low end version of the hardware is just powerful enough to basically run what you need, and that's about it. And with the Surface Studio, if you want to jump up to that next level, you're gonna have to spend another $500. That is a steep incline in price, especially since the base model itself is $3,000. You would hope that you would get a lot for $3,000. But really what you're getting with the Surface Studio is the screen. That's where the price is. Everything else is just kind of a standard laptop. Now, the one thing that really stands out to me when I look at the hardware is the hard drive. It is a hybrid drive. Actually, I don't know if it's a hybrid drive. It is two hard drives. One is a super fast SSD drive. It's got 64 gigs. And the other one is the old school platter hard drives that we used to have that were much slower, but that's a terabyte, so you get a lot of storage. So I think the idea here is what Windows is doing is it's choosing what you use the most, and it's offloading the stuff you use the most to the super fast hard drive, and it's using the other hard drive as kind of background storage. Now, in theory, this is a good idea. I've never used one of these hybrid drives, and that is the part that worries me a little bit. Like I said, this is a $3,000 computer. I would think for a $3,000 computer, we would be at least able to spring for an SSD drive. I would much rather have like a 256 gig SSD on there than an old school platter drive that actually has, a full 1 terabyte. I would make that trade-off any day, but it seems like it's not just the low-end Surface Studio that has this hybrid kind of drive thing. All three tiers have this hybrid drive. Now, I do illustration. Those are often really big files. I do video editing. Again, I'm using huge files. So I'm going to be accessing that slower storage all the time. And I would hate for my computer to be like fast, 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 slow, because then you're really gonna notice that, especially since every other computer I've used in the last 5 years has had a really fast hard drive in it. It's gonna be hard going backwards from that, especially in your new high-end desktop computer. In my last MacBook Pro a couple years ago, I actually took out the DVD drive and popped in an old hard drive to get more storage space, but that old hard drive was one of the slower ones. And what I found is that overall, it really slowed down my computer. Every time I went to save a file or use Finder, I found that it was trying to access that other drive, which makes sense, but of course that was a slow process. Photoshop kept trying to access that drive. I kept fiddling with the settings, telling it to Photoshop, cut that out, man. But still, my overall experience was I installed a new hard drive and my computer got a lot slower, and I ended up ripping that hard drive out after a week and putting a tiny little new SSD in there just for the speed alone. I remember enjoying the year 2005, but I don't want my hardware to go back to it. There's another video that I watched where they actually went in and replaced those hard drives, but I really don't want to be manually cracking open a brand new $3,000 computer. Some folks love doing that kind of stuff. I just want to draw on the thing. The one thing that I'm really curious about is the form factor. When I got my Surface Pro a couple years ago, I started doing my layouts for other design projects on there, and what I found is that the pen came in really handy, as I'd just be working on the device and then I'd find something where I'd want to crop a photo or I needed a pen really quick. I'd just pull out the pen, do the thing really quick, set the pen down, and keep going. It was a wonderful workflow that I really didn't expect I'd have, but I'm really glad it's there. And at the time, I was coming from an old Wacom Cintiq tablet, and when I wanted to use that, I had to unplug my second monitor. I had to plug in the Cintiq, I had to move it out, I had to get it into position, and all of that, it didn't take long, it only took a minute or so to kind of get it in front of me and then reposition all my windows and stuff when the screen's relocated or whatever. But still, that was enough to make me think, I just won't use the pen right now. I had to think, I want to illustrate for a while. I needed a block of time to draw. And all of a sudden having the pen, handy right there, really decreased the friction of switching between design mode for me and draw mode for me, and is part of the reason I really love the Surface Pro. And so with the Surface Studio, when I did test it, that was something that really appealed to me, because you have this giant monitor and you fold it down in front of you. Now, usually when I'm using a monitor, I like to be a little bit a ways from it. But when I'm drawing, I like to hover over something, and that was one of the things that I initially loved about the design when I was using it, was that it is away from you, but as you pull it into you, it is right there. And I loved that, and I wanted to use that more and see if it still was comfortable after using it for hours and hours, or if I had to actually slide it forward further. Those are some of the things I'm curious about and how that would affect my workflow using something like this. So yeah, everything that I loved about the product when they unveiled it is still there, and I still really like it. But at the same time, Microsoft over the last couple years, especially with the Surface line, has been building up this reputation of really iterating well on their products. If you look at the Surface 1, the Surface 2 was this huge leap forward, and then the Surface 3 was a huge hardware leap over that. And so I see the Surface Studio in much the same way. I could see them coming out with something that, really fits the bill of what I was imagining this would be. This is just a first generation product. I think the second generation product is going to be even better, and waiting for it might be a really good idea. Plus, there are a lot of rumors floating out there. Actually, they're not really rumors. It's been confirmed that Microsoft is working with Wacom to come up with kind of a universal Windows pen format, I guess you could call it, where Wacom's tech is going to be in more and more Windows-based devices. And I really do enjoy drawing with Wacom's pens more than the N-Trig pens, which the N-Trig pens have a little bit of wobble to them when you're drawing on angles and things like that. So if they could incorporate that in the next line of Surface devices, that would be really cool to see as well. Some folks think we might actually see that as soon as this spring. I think they announced the partnership with Wacom last spring or last winter. Product development cycles are surprisingly long, so I wouldn't be surprised if it takes a little bit longer to get some of this new tech rolled out, but you never know. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Surface Studio. I think it's worth waiting another year or so on that to see what comes next. In my opinion, if you're going to buy a computer, especially a really high-end $3,000 computer, that thing's gotta last you 4 years, 5 years. I'm not sure the low-end version of this product is really built to last that long. So for me, I'm gonna sit back and wait, no matter how hard that is. In the meantime, if I can get a review unit, I am going to review it. But I think for me personally, I still love the idea of having one of these things. It's just not quite worth it yet. Hey everybody, thank you for watching. I'd also like to throw out a very special thanks to my Patreon supporters. You can support me over on Patreon and support this channel. Another way you can do it is always by checking out my websites and clicking on some of the Amazon affiliate links that are there. A lot of the websites I've been doing lately are built around the idea of aggregating together reviews that other people have done and reviews that I have done to become like a source for people who are looking to buy these kind of products. So frequenting those sites really helps me out, and hopefully I can make them better over time and help you out as well. So that's all I got for this week. If you have any comments or questions, let me know down below, or you can always hit me up on Twitter. That's all I've got. I'll talk to you guys in a few days.